And then I'll open up our inspiration, our family picture for the day.
Oh, the degenerates.
See, that's all right. There you go.
The degenerates of the X-Men. Talk a bit louder, I guess. Increase that volume.
Well, what's your favourite colour?
Green? Red? I think we have a favourite colour, you know.
Green's not a creative colour.
Is it not? I guess, no. You know, a favourite colour thing is weird. It's all depends on what mood I'm in, I guess.
I don't mind green.
Purple, I guess, as well. Because my background on Xbox was watching purple for the last... I don't know how it...
I knew you had good taste. Purple's a good colour. Hello and welcome back to the next generation X, the next episode of the timeline. We're on episode 2 and we're looking for the series at the X-Men series and side series of films. So last movie we watched was the original X-Men movie.
The OG X-Men.
You know, and it aged.
It's still watchable.
But you know, it's from a different era. It's funny how you go back and you forget how things were from a different era, how they felt then and how they feel now, and you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I would like this as much if I'd seen this now, in comparison to everything that's come since.
That's because the standards just got better and better. For like,
I don't know about that.
I'm guessing it.
The X-Men movies, which we're going to find out, are all over the place. But for the next episode, I decided, I suppose, but we decided before we move on, we have to look at the one outlier that is from around this sort of period. So before the original X-Men movie came out, there was another film made. So we're going to talk about it today. Before we move on, though, how are you doing, Linbert?
I'm doing fine.
How have you been in this climate?
Fine, 2020. It's been...
It's one of the best years we've had.
Oh. I can't complain personally, to be honest. Like, it's not been the worst year for me, but it's not been the best year, but I've been quite lucky, I guess, in the whole COVID situation. So
I mean, I can't speak for you, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. Been furloughed most of the year. Like, still got my job, so I'm one of the lucky ones, I guess.
It's really interesting because I left Marks and Spencer's just before. It's been a year now. So just before December, and it was in December when you started hearing about it in other countries, China primarily, but there were sort of nods to it, maybe a case or two in other places. And then I went to work for from the private to the public sector, and it's funny because I went into Marks and Spencer's where I used to work about a week and a half ago, and they'd cut half their staff.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just thinking the odds on is I could have been fired at that point anyway if I'd stuck around. So it's just weird fortune, Obviously you feel for the people who've lost their jobs.
Yeah.
But so many people in this town have lost their jobs. Like, we're the worst hit town in the country financially. Several thousands,
That's because the airport,
thousands and thousands of
the
people.
Airport is like the airport is shut down pretty much. So the town is shut down.
Yes, but for the most part, it's a strange time. But I've not stopped working the whole time. So I don't know. It's a weird one for me. For me, it's not that. It's been a challenge because I'm worried about my job, and you not working. It's been a challenge in the sense that you're one of these frontline sort of people, and you're seeing all of the stuff come in, and then you're dealing with all of the ramifications of people getting sick, and houses become empty for a specific reason in many cases. So you find out what's going on with a lot of people in the town. You reach out to a lot of people in the town, and so you see the pressures from a different way. Yeah.
Yes, I don't see any of that. I just see it from the media side.
But it's not been so bad. I'm pretty happy and healthy generally, and me and Nadia have not gotten sick. So
that's a good thing.
knock on wood,
Knock on
obviously. Well, I don't aim to, if possible. Although hopefully this vaccine will be fairly distributed quite quickly.
On hopes.
And that it works. Also,
that's
my plan is to sit back and wait and watch to see if there's any side effects on people.
That's what my
and
plan
assess
is.
to see if it's effective and it works for a prolonged period. I'm not anti-vax at all.
I'm not you.
Yeah,
I just
yeah, but I think it's common sense just to kind of see how it plays out.
Because it is a new vaccine as well. It's not like it's something that's been around for years. So like, you just have no idea what happens. Like,
I mean, you just don't know. I'm not medically trained, so. But it's good to see we're both doing well, right? Yeah. So that's good, you know. So we, as a reward for our, struggles through the years, I thought it would be nice for us to watch this movie. I don't have fond memories of Generation X, but I did see it around 99, 98.
Oh, so you
97 sort of period when it was on tape. Didn't buy it. I think it was from like a Blockbuster or a very small video rental sort of store. And I have memories of it.
Do you remember enjoying it though back then?
Not enjoying it. It was a lot of things. It's just like I am not offended by this.
I guess back then it would be nothing else really superhero stuff was quite
rare
back then anyway. Like,
and also it's like it's a weird thing by itself because of what the nature of what it is. Yeah. It's like it's not a real film, but it could be mistaken for a direct to tape film.
It's a pilot, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we'll get into that.
Oh.
You feel free to say what you want. I'm not to stop talking about the pilot. That's my job.
It's meant to be a pilot, was it, for a TV show?
So yes, we're watching Generation X, not the band, and not D Generation X, and not literally Generation X. We're not talking about the phenomenon of a generation of people who were born at a certain point. No, we're talking about the Marvel Comics based X-Men adjacent TV movie pilot. So let's hop on to who was introduced in this, because there's some interesting bits here. We'll cover what they did afterwards, because unlike the mainline film series, a lot of these people will not come back for many reasons, and some of them we'll never see again in any other sort of franchise or anything like that. I mean, we might cover one of the things they've been in at some point. You never know. So the Generation X TV pilot movie was directed by Jack Shoulder. He was born in June 8th, 1945 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he's a retired American director. And he's best known for his work in the horror film genre, and we'll cover a couple more films later, I think. But notably Alone in the Dark, not based on the video games, but a film that was called that before the video games existed. And the most famously, he's the director of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, which is famous for being a gay parable as well. Oh. So it was really beloved sort of horror. I can
kind of see somebody influence it, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, we'll cover that, actually. We'll get into that. Okay. We won't talk about Freddy Krueger just yet. After this, he would direct Wishmaster 2.
I've seen that as well.
Yeah. And I'd say Wishmaster 2 is just above this, the Wishmaster series.
Yeah, Wishmaster is a terrible series, really. But it's horror, cheesy horror.
I mean, he's got a tact for doing sequels, at least, by the looks of it. So the screenplay was written by Eric Blakeney. I will admit now, this was a rush job for the research compared to even all the other stuff, because I watched this last night and it was quite late. And the way I watch these things, if I don't get to watch them more than once, I have to watch them, do some writing, pause, watch another scene, maybe go backwards to check details as I go. So this was a light.
I feel for you.
Yeah. Unlike the other ones where we want to dive in a bit deeper, and because there was probably more detail involved, I wanted, after the first X-Men movie being quite heavy in a couple of spots, I wanted something a bit lighter anyway. So the screenwriter, Eric Blakeney, was born September 14th, 1959, and he's American film and television director, producer, and screenwriter. He's known for writing award-winning episodes of television for 21 Jump Street.
Oh, never seen it, but I hear good things.
As for the cast, we have Finola Hughes as Emma Frost, aka the White Queen. She's born 29th of October 1959, and she's an English actress. If you couldn't tell from the accent, she's
putting on you.
No, of the two accents we hear that aren't American, hers is definitely the least put on of the two.
This sounds over.
She was an English actress, television host, entrepreneur, author, and dancer. Best known for her role as Anna Devane on the ABC soap operas General Hospital and All My Children.
Oh, never heard of it. American, I guess.
American soap operas are not something that
we would
watch, let alone know anything about. Her portrayal of Laura in the 1983 film Staying Alive, the sequel to Saturday Night Fever. People hate that film. I've never seen either. We're not going to cover the Saturday Night Fever, Staying Alive duology of films in this series. Although you never know, maybe it's a side one. Next is Jeremy Ratchford as Sean Cassidy. He's not named, but he's also otherwise known as Banshee, and that's the character he's based on. He was born on August 6, 1965, and he's a Canadian actor. And he's not notable for anything before this, but he's done things since. So we'll get to that later. There is also Amaryllis, I think, as Monet, or Monet's character name is apparently, although we don't hear this, Yvette Clarice Maria Therese Saint Creux. I don't know. In the comics, they have trouble with this because they just call her literally M. And she's, again, based on the character in the comics. She's an American television actress. She only goes under the one name, sort of like Madonna. That's why I'm having trouble with this, because I'm not sure how I should pronounce it in an honest sense. She worked as a model and acted in ads and student film projects before she made a professional debut as an actress in the role of Patty Gilbert in the syndicated TV series Sweet Valley High, which I remember seeing back in the day.
Did you?
Yeah. I like how you're surprised. You remember the past?
Yeah.
Not watching it, but I'm aware of it being on telly. And she was a guest star in TV series The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I've seen that TV series.
Well, I know of this one.
I know. I've not seen every episode. I've seen a lot of episodes out of order, I guess.
She probably dated Will Smith at some point, or something. Maybe, unless she was younger then. I don't know. Will Smith is a bit older, isn't he? Then we get to Heather McComb as Jubilation Lee, aka Jubilee.
Jubilation.
Heather Ann McComb, born 2nd of March 1977, is an American actress. In 1989, she played the title character in Francis Ford Coppola's segment of Life Without Zoe of the anthology film New York Stories. So, like, a proper actress, finally. She played the part of Scout in the 1997 television program The Outsiders. Next is the fantastically named Bumper Robinson as Mondo. His real name is Larry, but Bumper is better, I suppose. Larry C. Bumper Robinson II was born June 19th, 1974, and is an American voice for afterwards as well, because there's not really much of a note prior to this. Augustin Rodriguez as Angelo Espinosa, I think, aka Skin. He's one of the few characters where you actually hear his code name. Like Mondo is known as Mondo in the comics, and you don't hear him under his real name. Augustin Rodriguez is an actor and director known for Falling Down, the Michael Douglas film, and Strange Days, and we'll get back to him later as well. And Suzanne Davis is Arlie. Now, during the I don't know about you, but during the watching of it, I thought her name was Harley.
I did as well. I was like, oh.
But apparently it's Arlie. A-R-L-E-E. Last name Hicks, but I don't think that's mentioned either.
I don't think so, no.
Suzanne Davis, born February 10th, 1978, in Denton, Texas, is an American comedian and actress. Other than that, I can find she's appeared in the film 28 Days, not 28 Days Later, and played Jan in the General Hospital spin-off Port Charles. She also played the role of Alex Kaufman in the NBC Peter Engel's teen sitcom Production Malibu. I have to confirm all of that, but I think that's correct. Some of these people don't have as much information online that's easy to find as others. But there is, IMDb's and stuff.
I guess they're not mega stars.
Again, this was a tiny sort of dig around, so there's probably more I could find if I had more time. If I do find any more information, I will put it in the show notes for anybody who's interested. I doubt I will put any time into that, though. Considering this film. Randall Slavin as Kurt. Apparently his last name is Pastorius. Or Pastorius. He doesn't seem to have a code name, but I think at least not one that's mentioned, but I think he does have an official code name, like on a couple of websites it's mentioned. Randall Slavin was born August 19th, 1969, so he's quite a bit older than the others, in Hollywood, California, and had appeared in Sybil, the TV series, Lawrence's Lament, and in 1994, Legends of the Fall. He also had a part in Beethoven's Second, which I think is nice to know. And most notably, and probably our lead sort of title actor, is Matt Frewer as Dr. Russell Tresh. I misheard it as Trash or Trask, possibly.
I thought it's Trask, but...
Yeah. Matthew George Frewer is born 1958, January the 4th. He's a Canadian-American actor, singer and comedian. He's best known for portraying the 1980s television icon Max Headroom.
Oh.
You see, now you can see why. Because we were having a conversation earlier, weren't we, about his performance. And I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot more later. But his performance, you said, was...
A knockoff Jim Carrey.
A knockoff Jim Carrey.
I don't know, I didn't mean it in a bad way. It just felt like they wanted the Jim Carrey, performance. And they couldn't afford Jim Carrey, so they got the next best thing.
Yeah. the C-level Jim Carrey performance. He's making choices in this film. What I think they've probably done is they've got on the Max Headroom guy and said, can you be a bit more like Max Headroom, sort of,
Yeah.
He's
a bit of a stupid character, though. But
not quite the same,
He's a bit of a silly character, though.
Oh, well, we'll talk about that. Notable side characters and actors. There is also an appearance from another character actor, from Gary Chalkus, I think, a detective in the beginning of the show. He's behind the desk and he's talking about them taking her away.
Oh, yeah.
Gary Glenn Chalk, born February 17th, 1952, is an English-Canadian film, television, and voice actor. He has provided voices for Optimus Primal of Beast Wars, Transformers, and Beast Machines, as well as Optimus Prime in the anime English dubs of Transformers Armada, Transformers Energon, I assume. And Transformers Cybertron. He was also the third American voice of Dr. Robotnik for Sonic Underground. He lent his voice to over 30 animation TV series and has been in films such as The Fly 2, Godzilla, the first American Godzilla, and Freddy vs. Jason.
He's the most successful actor here.
He is what we were talking about earlier. That guy.
That guy.
Oh, that guy.
Oh, that guy.
He was also playing the recurring role of Colonel Chekhov in Stargate SG-1.
Is that still going?
I mean, he was. This was filmed over 20 years ago. So,
yeah.
So God knows, like time has passed. Linbert, I hate to break it to you, especially this year, because who knows how long this year's been now. And notable characters are Arlie and Kurt, or Harley or Harvey and Kurt, whoever. They were developed specifically for the show and not originally in the comics. They're thought to be stand-ins for, in Kurt's case, Chamber, who was an interesting power set because his mutant abilities when he was a teenager, he entered into puberty, his mutant abilities manifested, and he exploded from the inside. And so his bottom jaw was blown off and his chest was blown out. And what was left was just sort of constantly burning plasma and magma. So he had, like, his character, he would be well wrapped up and he'd have a scarf wrapped around his face or a piece of fabric around his face that would go up to his nose because it would cover the fact he was just this gaping chasm. And I think he could just blast that energy out and things like that. Arlie was created to replace Husk, who had the power to shed her skin and reveal an epidermis of a different composition underneath. So imagine peeling your skin off and then the skin underneath is made of metal or different sort of material. With Chamber, the production team wanted Chamber to be on the show, but financially it was too expensive to do that. There's no real mention of why Husk wasn't used, because for the most part she just looks like a teenage girl with blonde hair, much like the character that's replaced her. And maybe they would have put that power in later, but maybe there's just something weird about peeling the skin off, and they didn't want to risk somebody trying to copy doing something weird like that to themselves. The rest of it's too fantastical for it to be faked. But, so there's some notable characters before we get into the actual production from comics. Much like last time, we want to mainly hit the 4 key characters. The first one is Emma Frost. She's pretty recognisable. I'm sure you've seen something with the Emma Frost character in. Probably.
I can't remember.
How many of the X-Men films have you seen before?
Most of them apart from Apocalypse. So if she'd been in Apocalypse, then
she didn't appear in Apocalypse as far as I remember. Emma Grace Frost is a powerful mutant telepath born to a rich Boston mercantile family. After parting ways with her family, she became the White Queen of the Hellfire Club and began a financial empire as the CEO of Frost International. Starting as an enemy of the X-Men and clashing with the New Mutants and New Warriors, she later had a tragic accident that changed her heart for the better, putting her love for teaching to good use, but never afraid to cross the line of the morally correct. She became the co-headmaster of Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, where she trained the latest generation of mutants known as Generation X. She has since gained the ability in the comics to transform her body into organic diamond, rendering her non-destructible and making it more effortless to hide her emotional side. Seldom worried by what others might think of her, she has become a valuable member of the X-Men and a leader to the mutant community in general, currently sitting on the Quiet Council of the Mutant Nation Krakoa. I'm not super up to date with the comics. And having resumed rights of the reins of the newly branded Hellfire Corporation as chief ambassador of Krakoa. Like at one point, a whole nation of mutants was created.
Oh.
Because there was this period immediately after the House of M storyline, I think, where a lot of mutants just vanished or lost their powers, and there was only a handful of mutants left. And then they were under attack from the Inhumans, because there's always been this thing where Inhumans and mutants don't like each other, generally.
The power struggle.
Sort of. Like, if I think we mentioned it before, but if an Inhuman becomes an Inhuman officially when they go through Terrigenesis, this is me becoming a nerd. Terrigenesis, where they're exposed to a gas that makes their powers manifest, and it is inbuilt in them from birth, not as a natural genetic occurrence, but because of manipulation of their genes by an alien race in the past. So generations later, others are born due to this manipulation, and they're born that they manifest via the Terrigenesis process. They go into a cocoon and break out as a powerful creature, you know. But mutants are born naturally via evolution as mutants and have powers. But if you were to expose a mutant to the Terrigenesis process, humans would tend to be all right. Inhumans change, and mutants die.
Oh.
As well. So there was this one point where I think some sort of big Terrigenesis bomb went off and covered much of the planet, so loads of mutants were killed out.
Oh, I see.
In a large terrorist attack. I've not followed the comics very well. I'm probably making loads of mistakes, but I seem to remember reading lots of these things that happened. So I'm sure the Krakoa thing came as a result of some of all of that happening to Mutant. I think the Marvel Comics were phasing out a lot of mutant-focused comics because of this change to Disney, and Fox obviously hadn't been bought up yet. So that's why Fantastic Four comics were phased out as well, because they were owned by
Fox. Yeah.
The Fantastic Four moved to being called the Future Foundation for a short period as well. I don't know if that's still going. I dip into comics once every so often. But I digress. The next important character is Jubilee, or Jubilation Lee, the daughter of two prosperous Chinese immigrants. Jubilee Lee was born and raised in Beverly Hills. She was born to be raised in Beverly Hills. Born and raised in Beverly Hills, California, and lived a charmed life. Jubilee attended an exclusive Beverly Hills school and was believed to have gymnastic potential to participate in the Olympic Games. However, all in one fateful weekend, her parents lost their money in the stock market and were mistaken for their neighbours, also named the Lees, and killed by two hitmen, while Jubilee was out with a friend of the family. Jubilee was then, as a consequence, sent to an orphanage, but ran away and hid in the Hollywood shopping mall. Stealing food to survive, Jubilee first discovered her mutant power to generate blinding and explosive energy fireworks while running away from more security. The stress of running away from the security guards caused Jubilee to emit a large light energy blast while in a back alley. This completely disoriented the men and allowed the frightened young girl to escape. Upon learning her mutant ability to create fireworks, Jubilee realised she could earn money by using her powers to entertain customers and visitors in the mall. Oh. She became a street performer. Frustrated with the young girl's rebellious nature and powerful light shows, the mall security hired mutant hunters known as the M Squad to capture her. Jubilee held her own by blasting the M Squad's energy tracker beams, but she was eventually caught. Luckily, Jubilee was rescued by the X-Men Dazzler, Psylocke, Rogue and Storm, who happened to be in the shopping mall. Curious about these strange women, she followed them for a while and later jumped into a portal after them. Oh. And that's how she ended up part of the X-Men. Later on, she became the central character for the original X-Men cartoon.
I remember from that.
Yeah, so everything you saw was from her. So, and you see that sort of story play out. She's with some foster parents in that, and it's slightly different, but she's like always the central viewing point for the teenage and kids watching, and she has close ties to Wolverine, especially in the comics. You wouldn't know it to watch the films, but she sees him as somewhat of a father figure in the comic books. In the movie, Rogue sort of replaced that role. And more recently, Jubilee has both turned into a vampire and adopted a baby.
Good on you, Jubilee.
I think she's still a vampire as well.
Oh.
They updated her look slightly, but she was like really new, cool design. So she has fireworks and vampire powers now, and like Blade, like she was part of a group of vampires who could walk around in the day.
The day walker. And
they don't have the thirst for blood.
Oh.
So all the benefits and none of the
she's
downside.
She's Blade, isn't she?
Next up is Angelo Espinosa. Oh, I got it right first time. I'm getting better. Skin was born in the borough in south central Los Angeles. His girlfriend Taurus became a gang member, straining their relationship because Angelo refused to fly colours, mostly for his mother's sake. One night, Torres and some of her friends picked Angelo up to cruise, but turned out to be a drive-by shooting. The stress of the incident caused Angelo's powers to manifest, and he passed out. He woke up with the car on fire and Torres' friend Goro dead. And Taurus gone. A homeless man was trying to steal Angelo's wallet while he was sleeping, and Angelo fled the burning car. It exploded, killing the man, with his wallet found in the unidentified... Let's go back to the beginning. With his wallet found in the unidentified...
Unidentified.
Can you say it?
Unidentified.
An unidentifiable...
Almost.
Corpse of this homeless man, Angelo Espinosa was declared legally dead. Oh. None of his friends or family were aware of this, and many truly believed him to be dead. Angelo left town to keep his mutation secret, and because he believed he was protecting Torres from a murder rap. Angelo was one of the young mutants targeted by the Phalanx. He joined Generation X when it opened, and soon showed himself to be a fun-loving, despite his resentment for his powers. Initially, he was quite secretive and wasn't keen on having authority figures tell him what to do. As he became more comfortable with his powers and teammates, his attitudes changed. It's same powers as in the TV show, the stretchy skin. Although it's different because of things he does in the TV show, film. He's almost played as if he's Mr. Fantastic. But the only other notable character is Dr. Russell Tresh. We're talking about Russell a lot. He's an original character made for the show and has no basis in the comics. But it is surmised that he might be meant to be a nod to the Trask character from the comics, who's the creator of the Sentinels, who will appear later on in the series that we're talking about. But there's not much we can talk about him because, like I say, he was created for the film. So let's go on. There's not a lot of background, but the film is based on, like I say, the Generation X comics. So the team was led by both Banshee and Emma Frost, as there is in the TV movie, and was comprised mainly of Jubilee, Husk, Sync, M, Chamber, and Skin, and the mysterious Penance, who doesn't make an appearance here. I think it's she, if I remember rightly, unless I'm thinking of the wrong character. But this character appears, is just kind of dumped on their doorstep and can't understand what they're saying and can't talk. Oh. The team's primary purpose was to receive an education and learn to be the next generation of X-Men, rather than fighting supervillains. The school was located at the Massachusetts branch of Xavier's School. We'll mention Massachusetts. Why is it I can hear a word on and somebody saying it, and then when it comes time to say something, it just falls out of my mouth like marbles? Massachusetts.
Massachusetts? Oh, I can't say that.
Yeah, it's because we're English. Massachusetts. Massachusetts. Massive Chewits branch of Xavier's School. The first appearance of the Generation X sort of squad was in Uncanny X-Men 317, published October in 1994, and the last issue, should I say, was published of Generation X number 75 in June 2001.
No, it went for quite a while.
A little while.
Not as long as some comics, but little one.
Yeah, it was all right from what I read of it when I was back in the day. The film was screened on Fox TV as part of its Tuesday night movies.
Oh, so it made it on air then.
February 20th, 1996. Well, we watched the trailer for it downstairs.
I guess, but sometimes you can. Some kind of trailers.
Where would they have got the trailer from? It was clearly recorded from the telly, then, but
some because it's made it.
It was the worst looking thing of it. If somebody made that now, it would look really good. Although actually they don't have very good footage to work with, do they? Oh. We watched this film for people who are interested on YouTube, where is I think the only place where it's available, and on standard definition, recorded or ripped from a VHS cassette version of it.
I think it made it worse. I was watching it on 4K TV as well, so it made it even worse.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't standard TV, it wouldn't be as bad. Like it was, but I feel like
yeah.
I was like, oh, this is like terrible footage.
Yeah. Trust me, it was no better back then. All right. So, are you ready for this? Any sort of comments? What did you think before you went in? What were you expecting?
I was expecting it to be trash. So. I almost say, I guess, trash is a bad word. I didn't have high hopes for it at all.
Trash may be a bad word, but it's not always inappropriate.
I guess not, but yeah, I don't really like disrespect. I guess someone worked hard on that anyway, but it was just.
It cost $4 million to make.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess back then that would been quite a lot as well. I guess.
Oh yeah, back then definitely.
For a TV pilot as well, like
more than many films.
I can't really spend the money though. I mean, there's nothing really that. I guess maybe the sets.
No, they definitely didn't spend the money on the sets.
They didn't spend it on the actors either.
Well, a couple of the actors maybe. We'll get to where I think maybe some of the money went. Right, let's get into this. So we open the film with the New World Entertainment logo and fade into a black screen. White text appears. Mutation. It seems to be referencing a dictionary definition.
Mutation.
1. The act of being altered or changed. 2. The illegal genetic condition, US Statute 5504178, first apparent in puberty, caused by the X factor located in the pineal gland of the brain. Now, I didn't research the pineal gland or any part of the brain. I'm sorry. I should have. I wish I had. Maybe I'll look into it a bit and put some into the notes. But I did look into the dictionary definition of mutation. Noun, biology, also called break, a sudden departure from the parent's type in one or more heritable characteristics caused by a change in a gene or chromosome, also called sport, an individual species or the like resulting from such a departure. The act or process of changing, a change or alteration in the form or nature. Phonetics, umlaut, linguistics in Celtic languages, synthetically determined morphophomic phenomena had to be precursed with morphophomic phenomena that affect initial sounds of words. So the way the accent and the original language, the Celtic language, sounds. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the action, that was from dictionary.com, by the way. according to the Oxford English Dictionary, the action or process of mutating, quote, mutation of punks' angry energy into something more thuggish and mindless, or also the changing of the structure of a gene, resulting in the variant form that may be transmitted to subsequent generations, caused by the alteration of a single base units in DNA, or the deletion, insertion, or rearrangement of larger sections of genes or chromosomes. Mutation is ultimately the only way in which new variation enters the species. Countdown, a distinct form resulting from genetic mutation. Whether his goats were a new mutation or part of an older breed remains unclear. End quote. And for good measure, I looked up US Statute 5504178. Nothing can be found in reference to this, and anything that pops up is this film as a reference point.
Oh.
So, in one of the Marvel Comics sort of wikis for, Marvel Universe stuff. I didn't check what Marvel Universe this is set in. I'm sorry. But this is not set in the same universe as the comics, and it's certainly not set in the same universe as the films. But we will pretend it's... I mean, obviously, Timeline pretends everything is wherever it is. So, before the events of the original X-Men movie, this happened, and then they led to the X-Men movie. It's the way we're looking at it.
Oh.
You'll be able to follow along. When we finally create a website with an actual timeline on it, this will make sense, but I'm sure you all understand. After that, we see a scan showing a cross-section of a person's head, like cut down the middle vertically, sort of cross-scan. And the area of the brain is lit up red. Before more text appears over that image, all life mutates, which is, I suppose, technically true. Doctors talking, a pair of gloves, a turning handle. We should get good secretions, a voice states. So they're after secretions, apparently.
They're carnivores. They're after that brain.
Well, they might be secreting from somewhere else. We don't know yet. I hate to think where else could secrete. I mean, lots of parts of the body, I suppose. A body, a young man strapped to a table. The doctors talk about having 40 seconds, otherwise there will be contamination. The victim has Zoidberg hand claws.
I did see that. I was like...
That's his mutation.
I guess that was just to show that he's a mutant, I guess.
It's good, quick visual. Yeah. Suddenly a woman in a white coat comes in with some doctors. Stop right there, Russell. The bad doctor's name is Russell. I love it. They remove the victim from the table before some Nazi-looking stormtrooper types come in and tell the boy he's in violation of the Mutant Registration Act. So we've already heard about the Mutant Registration Act, but that didn't exist in the X-Men.
No.
So it must have already existed in our time, then ended, and then be restarted. Or they're fighting to have it put back in place. Kind of like Brexit. It's like if we leave the European Union properly, like
we'll be finally back into it next.
Somebody comes along and says, "Well, that was stupid," and we all vote to go back in. It's kind of like that. We won't talk about Brexit again for a while. And they take him away, like just out of the blue, and they're not involved in rescuing this boy from the doctor. They just happen to also turn up at the same time. They're like wearing all black outfits and black caps and whatnot. There's like definitely sort of invoking sort of fascist sort of police imagery.
So then is Frost part of the fascist police then? Because doesn't she use her powers there?
I mean, she's living in this state. They're still the official police. I don't know how. We haven't got a lot of time involved in this universe, really.
Because she does use her powers, don't she?
She does.
So it's like, is she not part of it? Is she not like?
Yeah, but she's not working with the police. They take him from her, don't they?
Yeah.
She just wants to get him off the table. They call the boy Donald Spector. I haven't looked up his name. I did want to at some point, and we're just going to remember him as Clawboy. The doctor tells Russell he's through. But that's not good enough for the white-haired woman, who grimaces and makes lightning and wind. So is she supposed to also be Storm?
I did think that. I was like, what? I was like, what are you doing?
She's clearly not. She's only. I mean, in the comics, she's got psychic powers, and later on, I don't want to ruin it. Spoilers for anybody who's desperate to see this film along with us. But if you haven't watched it already, what are you doing listening to this? She's only psychic, telepathic, sort of high level, but God knows. She certainly can't make wind and storms. Before pointing and leaving, I just mimed pointing like a dramatic sort of stage actress. And we get a circle wipe and a title card. Generation X.
I was like, here we go.
Did this get you hyped for the start of the film?
No.
Well,
It's a cheap knockoff Storm here.
Oh, knock off the budget Storm. What's it? Hurricane.
Okay.
We get a shot of some houses and a card that unhelpfully reads 5 years later. So once again, we don't have a date or time in the media we're working from to get a real place in the timeline. Because this came in 96, we're going to pretend it started in that first scene, February 96. And then we jump forward 5 years. So let's say it's 2001.
It would make sense 96 for the stuff that the technology they have in the world. So everyone there will probably
It's not far-flung future.
No.
It's definitely not doing what X-Men the movie did with like its computers.
No.
It definitely doesn't have the cerebro we're used to. So it's 2001, and Hector, I think somebody says Hector is packing. His brother possibly says it to him and joins him and says when he gets to Xavier's school not to let them treat him like a freak. They hug and he heads out. His family see him off, and his sister calls him Angelo. So he's not called Hector, he's called Angelo.
Yeah.
God knows where I heard Hector from. Refusing to let go of his hand as he drives off, she causes him to scream in pain as his arm is stretched down the street. Eventually, it pings back to him, I think. Next, we cut to an office building. Like this prolonged piece of establishing footage of an office building. Have you noticed a lot of the film is viewed at sort of angles?
Yeah.
Dutch angles. Lots and lots of the shots are like that.
Put one cameraman like, do your best, mate. Do your best.
This is my filming style. I'm going to film at a sort of angle for everything, even if it's not necessary. Our doctor from earlier, who was the evil doctor, not the good doctor, not the lady doctor, the thin man doctor, Russell from earlier, talks about a device he's working on that allows him to step into dreams to suggest ideas, like hypnotism.
Like Inception.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'd not really thought about Inception, but I suppose it is kind of like a budget Inception. He name drops Freddy Krueger.
Oh yeah, I was like, why is he named Freddy Krueger? I was like, it's so random. Like.
And then Virtua Fighter, which means Sega was somehow involved with this, because
you see a massive scene, or like
Buddy Boy. He calls him Bobby Boy constantly. His co-conspirator is the person he's working for, essentially. We then cut to a shot from Virtua Fighter 2 Arcade Edition. A girl in a yellow jacket with yellow lipstick.
Yeah. Was it yellow?
I think she was wearing yellow lipstick, or at least lipstick that lights up under the LV.
Yeah, it was some LV, yeah.
She's playing... Oh, she's miming playing Virtua Fighter 2. She's playing Shun, if she's playing the left side. He's the best character. And he's fighting Lau. She's losing, but she's pretending like she's winning. And Russell is in this odd neon nightclub they seem to be in, which has also got arcade machines and a bar, possibly. I don't know. And he's walking around, like, just sort of saying stuff at random teenagers. And he goes and just lights one teenager's cigarette. It's just really creepy and weird. It's like me hanging out with a load of like kids, just at the arcade. Hey, kids. Hey, have a smoke.
Want a cigarette, boy? There you go.
Come here, kid. You want a cigarette? Except he's even creepier because he's doing this weird sort of, like you said, budget Jim Carrey sort of. Anyway. The yellow jacketed girl confirms to a boy that she's going to run away. She says, "Freedom rocks."
I think you don't know what freedom is, darling.
Suddenly, Russell's face pops out of the screen,
One more game.
encouraging people to play more, which is creepy and distracting. Like, what do you think of this? Do you think this would work?
It's something we're missing. I guess it has actually happened.
Not quite to this.
Not quite to this extent. But then there was a scene later where it does say only mutants can see it a lot more.
Still affects her. She doesn't.
It still
she's
affects
not bothered.
it, but they can see it, can't they? Though.
Just this weird image of his face suddenly appearing in the middle of Virtua Fighter, just talking at her, doing a Max Headroom, I suppose. She stops playing, but her character keeps moving anyway. Notes: this is because she's not playing the game, and the game is in fact just on the demo screen. It even shows the insert coin thing in the top corner. She plays so hard, or mimes playing so hard, that lights come out of her hands. She can't control playing. She's smacking the buttons, and which can happen. I don't know if you've noticed when you've been down the arcades when you were younger. You know, you get into a game and then lights would come out of your hands. No, not
imagination.
Oh, okay. Maybe I was just getting excited. Which causes Russell to notice, as he turns around, if you notice in the background, there's an X-Men arcade machine. Which means we need to break this down, I think. There's an interesting philosophical question being asked here without anybody's meaning to. Freddy Krueger exists in this world, which means the Nightmare on Elm Street films exist. And the X-Men exist as a comic book and video game. So this universe, Generation X, based on the X-Men comics, exists. And so the X-Men also exist. But then the X-Men comics exist.
Yeah, but then...
Well, we can't jump forward if you're going to mention anything. But it's an interesting... Even if we just take this film by itself, what does that...
I want to, but there is a part where they talk about costumes. You ask, there must be superheroes or something in this universe anyway.
Yes, but at the beginning, and we haven't talked about that, by the way, it says that being a mutant is illegal. Yeah. Which is ridiculous. It's like you've broken the law by literally existing, which goes us back to fascist police state. But what? Like, so for the X-Men to exist, these mutant powers people to exist and be famous enough to have an arcade machine based on them, they have to not be illegal. But maybe they're registered and working for the government.
Or maybe it's
your brain could just fall apart thinking about it. So yes, in this, on our timeline now, the Generation X and the X-Men exist in a world where the X-Men are also the comic book that they're based on.
Yeah.
And there's an arcade machine. So that's how it all works. Don't ask me how we're going to figure this out in our heads. That's just what it is.
I guess.
Yeah. It is interesting. It does confuse you. More fireworks. Some more fascist cops turn up and try to take her away, but she books it. Russell, grabbing her friend, whoever he was, because we never really find out who he is, asks who she is. If the yellow jacket and fireworks didn't give it away, it's Jubilation Lee, or Jubilee. Our second official confirmation of a Jubilee actress in this series. We have now got 2 Jubilee actors in the X-Men series so far. I'll let you know next time we get a new one.
There'll be a new one.
There will be a new one. Note here, despite being called Jubilee or Jubilation Lee, the character is Chinese and she's being played by a Caucasian girl instead. And she's not even, I mean, thank God she's not trying to do a Chinese accent.
Can you imagine?
She's not only not doing any sort of accent or trying to pretend that she's being miscast as this possibly of Chinese descent character. She's also like just completely the wrong sort of personality for the character as far as I can tell. She seems to be some sort of, I mean, some interpretations of the character in the comics seem to make her a bit more punky, but she's like that sort of edgy.
She doesn't come across edgy. She comes across in this one like
faux edgy, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, it's more obvious later, some of the things she says. But it's just bad writing. It's like an older writer trying to write teenagers, and in the 90s. Less noticeable when I was younger, but it's really bad now. She's finally captured and sparkles. So what do you think of this proper opening? We've probably introduced 2 characters. We've jumped forward 5 years. We've seen some mutant powers finally.
I mean, her one's probably better than Skin's introduction.
His introduction is slight, but it's. I suppose it's good to see his background is in a different place from hers. Like they're not both runaways, you know. Although it is interesting that their roles are reversed almost on the show compared to where they come from in the comics. Any other sort of thoughts? We've seen Russell in the future, 5 years later.
Russell.
How is his performance sort of getting to you at this point? When you got to this scene, how are you feeling?
I don't mind his performance. It just doesn't seem like it fits into this. That's the point. He doesn't fit into like the universe there at all. Like he doesn't do a bad performance because that's what he wanted to do. But it's like it just seems over the top for like.
Yeah. He gets grating.
Yeah.
After too long. If it was once an episode, maybe. If this was a 40 minutes show, you could live with it.
Yeah.
And if he wasn't always the villain.
He's got quite a lot of screen time in this as well. So
yes, well,
you see a lot of it.
He's the most famous actor, so they're really milking him in this one. I found it not super irritating, but annoying to an extent. He's a bad guy. Obviously, he's supposed to annoy you a bit, but he's not like sinister. He is out of place.
Yeah.
But fair play to him, you know. He's making choices.
Cool, yeah.
We get to look at some details in the next scene. There's a mugshot. This is a very fun mugshot. We find out her name's Jubilation Lee properly. She's 15, and it's so important they put it twice on the same screen. And they don't put many more details. We see an aerial view of a map where she was captured, I assume.
Is that Cerebro as well, Tom?
Yes, we'll get to that. And then we see her current status, subject apprehended at Watkins Mall. Now, this is important to note because there's an error on this screen already. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of errors in this thing. But on this screen, it says Watkins Mall. And then there's the names of the officers attending. There's some text I can't read because of the resolution. And then it says she's being held at Watkins, 12th Precinct. So Watkins Mall, as in Watkins, the name. And then Watkins Precinct is owned by Watkin.
Oh, it won't surprise me.
Watkins, you know? What? Is it? Somebody owns a whole... anyway. Maybe the mall owns... No, because that would be Watkins. Anyway. Cut to a woman in bed. She's woken by beeping. Checking her supercomputer monitor and then a printout. She sleeps in the same room as Cerebro, I think. Does she just walk across the room and it's there? Which is weird. But if you didn't guess, the computer we're talking about is Cerebro. We'll talk about Cerebro properly later. Cut to what is a shop warehouse. It's doubling as a stock cage. Doubling as a cell with a bed. So it's like, you remember, we both worked in the same shop in the past. You know, this sort of cages you put the high value goods behind, and it's not bars of a cell. It's just this big open, empty room with sort of a fence.
They're like, we've got to keep fighting fast. We've got to think fast.
So, and then for some reason, the people who've abducted her have let her mum come into the cell and just talk to her. She's going, "Do you know what sort of trouble you're in?" She's like, "I didn't do anything wrong. I just existed," you know. And so, some of the stuff they're saying, the conversation between them. In a better film, works fine. They're trying.
I still find it weird that the parents have blamed her though. Like, it's like offside.
She's jumping to conclusions, I think. But she's like, I didn't do anything wrong. I couldn't, and she's a bit cocky about the fact she's not told anyone she's a mutant. But you know, for some reason, Nazi cops have let Jubilation Lee's mother in. Her mum is called Mrs. Lee as well. Also not a Chinese woman. There's a chance her dad is Chinese and she's mixed race, but she's not.
I don't think his dad's Chinese.
No,
Because you see him later.
you see a version of him later, and he's not Chinese either. So officially, Jubilation Lee is called Jubilation Lee despite not being Chinese. I mean, you can be called anything, I suppose.
I guess, yeah.
As a sort of nod to the character and as a sort of naming convention, it seems kind of at odds with what you're seeing, you know. They got the costume kind of right. She's wearing a yellow jacket. That's the part they got right. And she can shoot fireworks. She asks for her dad, but her mother consoles her and says he can't be there because he's at conference. Something like that.
Yeah.
But she consoles her. And then we cut to another scene. And there's a bed with a man in it, sleeping topless, literally right next to a massive roaring fire. And that is the most heinous fire risk I've ever seen. Like, if he just rolled over and his covers went into the fire, this is, like, it's bad enough when you've got a bar heater in the same room while you're sleeping, let alone a fucking massive roaring fire. Like, he should be dead years ago. Like, and who has a fireplace in their bedroom?
He does.
I mean, I know where they're supposed to be staying is, like, an ex-mansion. And, you know, Xavier's wealthy, so he's got apparently 2 mansions. But it really got my back up. Like, this ridiculous. I'd love to see the thought process behind the sort of the set making, the scene making. Like, we can live with the fact that the police station is in a warehouse, but that's just it really got my. I don't know. Anyway. What are you telling the kids? You shouldn't be near a fire like that. Our still unnamed mystery woman wakes the slumbering Irish man. He's got what you assume is an Irish accent. You can just about tell. It's a terrible Irish accent.
It's quite annoying. I don't know why.
You notice he doesn't get a lot of screen time in this. Yeah. Despite being one of the 2 main teachers. He's not Irish in real life. He's Canadian. So it's even more insulting.
Just have his Canadian accent. I don't understand why someone.
Well, he's supposed to be playing an Irish character, I know. But...
Yeah, but Jubilee's meant to be.
Yeah, Jubilee's not playing the character she's supposed to be playing, so why should we care right now?
So just have his normal accent.
And he could also just be somebody from an Irish descent who's lost his accent. You know. We cut back to the stockroom to find a man behind a desk, who is the character actor we mentioned earlier. An oversized desk. It looks like he's at a desk like this, even though they're actually sitting down. I know nobody can see me, but I'm lifting my arms up to like my shoulders to mime the desk sort of height. But it's just a normal desk. I don't know how it looks that way to me. In what is an empty, echoing room. If this is a police station, why are this?
It's a quiet police station.
Maybe because it's at night, but you still expect a couple of other people to be in there. It's just him and Jubilation Lee's mother. Jubilee. We'll call her Jubilee from this point. He's sending Jubilation to a mutant camp, which also gets a bit fashy. Sending people to camps, and after touching on like the X-Men, the first movie, and all of the association with the Nazis and camps and stuff. You can see where that's all coming from. Which makes her uncomfortable. He's convincing her that it's the best thing. They talk about reintegrating her into society or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Like almost like reprogramming her, but ultimately she's just going to be taken away and not come back. Outside, as her mum's leaving, the Irish man and the white-coated, white-haired woman approach. She's more like very light blonde, and it's clearly a wig. It's one of the worst wigs I've seen in a long time. He calls her Miss Lee, which she shouldn't be in the comics, but anyway. And he introduces himself as Sean Cassidy, otherwise known as Banshee in the comics, and we'll find out why later. And her as Emma Frost. There's this very prickly back and forth with Emma Frost being very sort of aggressive towards Jubilee's mum. he very quickly attempts to sell her on having Jubilation go with them. Like, he's really quick with his line delivery as well. Like, he's got 15 minutes to film. They've got to get it out the bag. And it's like this weird conversation. It's like a back and forth, like 2 or 3 lines back and forth, and then immediately she's agreeing to this thing. 2 strangers, she rightly says, appear on the street in the darkened night, try and take her daughter away, and she just agrees to it.
She's like, yeah, take her now.
Yeah, and I like how, like, that's what gets Emma Frost angry, is like she dismisses them in one line, and then she's like having a snap at him. At least it makes sense that he's trying to be more of the mediator and calmer. And quickly the pair walk in, and after some zingy conversation of backs and forths between the two of them, Emma Frost uses her mind powers, and she uses the false identity of Hootie and Blowfish. I'm sure you can look up who Hootie and the Blowfish are. She uses a photograph to trick the officer behind the desk into thinking they're officers in full gear. So what I appreciated from that scene is she's actually on the level of Jean Grey, and she's actually using her mind powers. Unlike Jean Grey, who's just kind of lifts things, she's actually doing a range of stuff with her abilities, which is not that one of the things that this has oddly above X-Men. I think it's representing a psychic or telepath, or someone with mental abilities in more depth, which I appreciated. And in a cheap way too, without it looking cheap. They take Jubilation outside, Jubilee, and Emma mentions her having fireworks and latent telepathy. I don't remember her having telepathy, but she becomes a vampire later, so maybe anything's on the table now. They hop into a people carrier. Right. They talk about the academy as they're driving. Apparently she's into body piercing, which is new for the character. Again, it's probably just something for her to say that sounds cool in the 90s. And they're literally teaching her to be a superhero. They're not going to teach her mathematics or the science. It's not from schools. No, we're going to teach her to be a superhero. You love it, man. Do you like my Irish accent? This is a different area of Ireland. It's probably not. It's probably a bit Northern Irish, isn't it?
You're going to get attacked now on the streets. Who's that man in Irish accent?
Nobody knows what I look like. I'm starting to go a bit Scottish. They're literally talking about fighting crime. Like they're now we'll cover this in a second. They pick up Angelo Espinosa. He says, I think again the audio and the video on this film is awful. So obviously we've mentioned his name already, but Angelo, and he checks out Jubilee. Creepily, there's a moment where they meet each other and they just kind of stare at each other. And then right in front of these 2 people who are taking them away, they're just kind of checking each other out.
It's a bit weird. I don't know, it comes across as creepy. We'll get to it later, but it does come across...
Yes.
It does come across as kind of a creep anyway. Like, I don't know. I don't think I meant him to that, but he does kind
of... Trust me. I don't know, but I also picked up on these creep factors that were going on. But I don't think it was just him. I think there's a lot of creep factor going on in this fucking... Anyway... cut to Russell at Evil Corp, looking at a graphic of a spinning brain. He's just sitting there watching this brain rotate on a video. Why is his lab in the local public toilets, by the way?
Oh, yes.
Because it looks like the toilets in our local mall.
All that funding he's got, you know.
Yeah. He can have it anywhere he wants. He wants it in the toilets. What the hell? He rambles on about dream dimensions and mutant brains, and then we finish the scene on that. He's got some sort of plan with mutant brains, but he's not clear yet.
He's obsessed with getting a mutant brain, but it's weird though because you'd think you'd be able to get one easy.
Yeah.
With all the money he's got and the connections,
Also, it's been 5 years since he was testing on that one boy, and then he sees Jubilee in the arcade at the mall, and he sees her powers, and all she does is make some lights flash, And he's like so excited.
Yeah.
This is the first mutant he's seen in 5 years. But the state of the world and knowing how the comics and mutants work, they should be prolific.
That's
Like
what,
one in 10 people should be a mutant. So I'm like, why is this the first one he's seen? Why is he so excited? Why her specifically? Anyway, so what do you think about this situation so far?
I mean, it's all just.
It's finding the words, isn't it? What do you think of the police station?
I mean, seeing her use their powers is pretty cool, like her powers. But I don't know why she's using her mum. I really she's using her mum as well. Check them out.
Yeah, I suppose they just want to be as
Nice as possible.
legitimate as they
Yeah.
can be, and in the long run, like if they trick Jubilee's mum,
I guess yeah, they'll see.
then she'll wonder what's going on. When she reaches out, she realizes they're not the same. They can get away with it in the short term, and they also see these people who are going to take her away to a camp as, like I say, they're fascist sort of police. Probably not just normal police. There's probably something much more sinister going on when mutants get taken away, and they probably would have investigated that in the series.
I guess yeah, because they did mention it, and it's illegal to be mutants. They mentioned that quite a few times, so they'll have probably got there eventually at some point.
But it like on a production level, this is shoddy so far. Not super shoddy, but shoddy enough to be like, what is this sort of question? Some of the places they've chosen to film outside are okay, but there's no other people around. It's at night. It's sparse. You know, you can see they've done what they can with the budget. But you wouldn't think it was a $4 million budget either.
Especially in the 90s, that must have been a bit of money.
That's the equivalent of like 14 million now, probably. We'd have to check for inflation differences, obviously. But the next morning, we arrive at Xavier School for Gifted Children.
Empty school, by the way.
So I want to... yeah, we'll get to that. I want to ask a moral question here. The two of them last night approached Jubilee's mum on a dark street. They said it was a boarding school, convinced her to let them take her in about 3 minutes. And then they planned to take teenagers and force them to fight crime.
Wow.
And later on, you find out they can't even leave the grounds without getting in trouble. It's like, what? That's abduction.
It is kind of adoption.
And coercion into risking their lives.
I guess the alternative is...
And they're not teaching them anything. You'll find out later. They don't teach them normal lessons.
It's like, here's how to use psychic powers. You might have some psychic powers.
Oh, well, the early version of the Xavier School
It's a normal school, was it? Like,
has its bugs ironed out by the time we get to the X-Men, first X-Men movie. It's a real school by then. That's what I appreciate from the X-Men movie. Is like you get to see the school. It's always mentioned as a school in the cartoons. In some of the comics, it's less obvious, but in more recent comics, they started filling it out to make it look like more like a school. So, I appreciate when it does that properly. But this, we'll get onto how sparse the place is. But it is a bit alarm belly. This building seems smaller, but it's... we'll go ahead, actually, and jump to the bit where I've mentioned it. And I've got an interesting note here. The mansion used for the Xavier Institute is Hatley Castle, which is also used at Xavier's School in the films X2, X-Men United, X-Men The Last Stand, X-Men Days of Future Past, Deadpool, X-Men Apocalypse, and Deadpool 2.
It's the X-Men mansion.
This is the same mansion as in all but one or two of the films. So it's the same mansion.
Yeah.
It must be the same universe.
It's the same.
I think that's really interesting. Like, maybe this really is before the films. When you think about it. I mean, it's a stretch, I know.
I mean, you could have seen... I guess it could have been before the films, because...
I mean, yeah, they came in... Maybe Xavier came in and was like, what have you done to my house?
Yeah.
Where have all the kids gone? Anyway. They go into the sort of induction sort of area, and they use an old eye test machine to scan Jubilee's retina, and then they force her to strip nude She objects, and they still make her do it. You have to have your swab or whatever. So they make her take her clothes off. She thankfully doesn't take off her bottoms and leaves all her jewellery on. And then Emma Frost just takes a little like test swab and swabs her armpit. So she didn't need to be nude at all. So this is raising even more moral questions to me. Like, what the fuck is going on at this school? If that's what this is. And then you see skin just like peering over like grr, and a girl with her boobs are covered up, but she's half nude.
Oh, good old skin.
And then she tells him he's next, which is even more like, shouldn't the man be doing the boys' test and the woman just because they're underage as well? These two strange adults have taken underage teenagers and got them to take their clothes off. I didn't expect to be saying that sentence when I said I was going to watch this.
It's the 90s, man.
Yeah, anything was possible in the 90s. Jubilee and Angelo head outside to meet the school's other teens, which is 4 kids. 4.
The whole school's got 4 people.
Early days for the school, possibly. They introduce themselves. The 2 boys come over and immediately call Angelo a dork, possibly.
Yeah.
I think it's dork. That one's less clear. And butthead, and leave. Next, a girl in baggy clothes walks over and introduces herself as what I thought was Harley, but it's actually Arlie, and points out Mondo, the bigger of the 2 boys, Kurt, who's always wearing glasses, and Monet.
Cyclops.
Yes.
No, not quite Cyclops, but
budget Cyclops.
Budget Cyclops.
Cyclops. They discuss powers Kurt has. He can shoot similar to Jubilee, sort of light or energy from his eyes, and possibly see through stuff. Citations needed on that one. Angelo's skin stretches. We don't really find out any of the other powers. Not at this point, anyway. Then they just randomly play, what Americans call football. Mondo accidentally hurts Skin by stretching his arm. So everybody jumps on Mondo. And then Sean walks over and shouts at them. And we see him use his powers finally, which is just him screaming and lots of energy coming out of his mouth, just like Banshee always is. Banshee can also fly in the comics, but we don't obviously see that here because that would be anything.
It's budget. More budget. Some
string to hold him up. Maybe him on a sort of trampoline. Or the old Superman trick where you just stand in front of a green screen like that. Anyway. They're all apparently being cartoon bitchy types. Sorry, I've jumped ahead. Jumped ahead in my script. Later, the girls are in their room, and Monet talks about Harley being a natural super soldier, essentially. Like, she's got, really tough, muscular body, but she's hiding it. And she's stronger than Mondo, she says. And you don't really see that in this film. And if anything, she's also the same, but not with the musculature. It's weird.
I feel like if it continues, she'd be the leader of the group as well.
Which one?
Harley.
I don't know about that.
You don't think so?
No, I mean, they're using her as a visual sort of. We'll get to why later.
Yeah.
They use her as a sort of
No,
visual.
but I feel like she's the one that kind of keeps the whole group. She tries to keep the whole group like.
I think maybe the comics focus more on M.
No.
Because obviously Harley or Arlie and fake Cyclops are added for this.
Yeah.
So with Monet already being there and also being a super strength sort of character, we'll get to her power set in a minute. She's kind of at odds. Why have 2 super strong girl characters
I guess so.
when you could mix it up and do something interesting? It would have been better if they'd been able to keep Husk, but maybe they could have actually thought of an original sort of power set. But no, she's just got a really toned body, and she finds that embarrassing. Later, the girls are in the room, and Monet talks about Arlie being a natural super soldier, essentially, and of how she is literally perfect. She says. Perfect, like her brain is perfect. She's immune to all diseases. Everything about her is perfect, and she's super strong. So I mean, she kind of makes Arlie redundant as a character. And she doesn't say anything, Arlie. Like, for the large part of the film, she's very mute.
She's, yeah.
Although, like I say, they're all really bitchy too.
Yeah, they are.
Like, for some reason, like the boys are just taking the piss out of Skin, and the girls are all bitchy with each other. And apparently, she says that us mutant types don't get on with each other. It's like, what's the point of you then? So, what did you think of this introduction to the rest of the teenagers?
It was actually alright this part because it's just like something simple, like they're all bitchy, I guess. But it's just showing that they're not working together at the moment, so eventually they might come together.
I can see the point of having them all not get on in that sense, but it doesn't really work they're not a functioning team because they've only just met. It's not like they've all gone out on manoeuvres or on an exercise and then because they're not coherent they've failed at doing something in that sense. It's just everybody's being a dick to each other. And in the morning, the next scene, everyone is a dick and is very unlikable. Like almost everybody's a really annoying character in this. Even like I was a fan of Jubilee, like one of my favourite characters. And even her character, I'm like, this is one of the more annoying characters on the show. Like Angelo's probably the one who's closest to being likable.
Yeah,
he's not an exaggerated version of anything, he's a slight stereotype, but not too much of one. It's more naturalistic. But all the others are kind of douchey and annoying, except for maybe Arlie, but she's just kind of sort of a victim sort of character, maybe because of her insecurities with her body. Or she's playing somebody who feels like she's going to be victimised if she's seen by people. Anyway, in the morning, after everybody's been a dick, Sean gives a tour of the security for some reason, which is what everybody wants to see at the school on their first day. And he gives the tour to all of the students, despite the fact 4 of them have already been there for God knows how long. Like they're only allowed an orientation day if you've gone past the number of 4 or 5 students. And then he introduces them to Cerebro, or Pound Shop Cerebro in this case, which is just a load of 80s supercomputers, kind of at one end of a room with a TV monitor attached.
Or what you call Alexa nowadays.
Yeah. Or what you use for an election now.
Alexa.
It's like compared to what we've seen in the X-Men movie, this Cerebro's not the same at all.
I feel like they didn't even get the idea of Cerebro from anywhere. It's just like
it's not using like mental powers. It's not tracking mutants in a unique way. It doesn't explain it's just a computer, like a really big bank of computers and servers, but all kind of clad in black sort of material. And it's also the security for the mansion as well. Wait, does the school only have two teachers?
Yes. Oh, well, that we see anyway in this one.
I suppose it just has 6 students, so that makes sense. The first class we see, hosted by Emma, still in the same clothes as yesterday, which is questionable.
She never changed her clothes.
No, she doesn't. Is developing mental abilities. Apparently, all mutants are psychic now, and the class is less than 5 minutes long.
Oh, yeah, they did been up in, didn't they? Because every mutant can dream walk apparently as well.
Yeah, what?
Like,
she starts talking about the dream web, and I'm just like, what the fuck is the dream web? Oh god, here we go, sort of thing. Well, she does this thing where she holds a card up, and they're all trying to guess what's on the other side of the card, and Jubilee and Skin both get it right, but Skin keeps it quiet, and Jubilee just kind of excited to just say what is behind each one, because she's new and she's young and she's that sort of personality. Well, she's supposed to be, because she flops between excitable and attentive sort of student who's likable to really douchey sort of student character who's trying to be all cool and stuff. We go to the lounge, and a man appears on television and starts talking about mutancy, like being like AIDS.
Oh yeah.
Which was a sort of yikes moment. there. We could have prevented AIDS. If
I
we'd
heard that. I was like,
Ooh. But also the director again directed Nightmares on Elm Streets 2, and that's a gay parable, and so there's the potential that there is a connection to him personally, and that's why he mentioned AIDS in the But it feels like a yikes when it comes up, whether or not associating AIDS, and I mean it's a stigma thing as well, and.
yeah.
X-Men is also a parable about homosexuality too, generally, and being, different from others and oppressed by people, being a minority. So there are lines that can be drawn there. But, Kurt gets bored of that, so he uses his eyes to blow up the television. No more TV!
You're
Yay!
grounded, Arno. You're grounded, Kurt.
Him and Mondo seem to love the fact they've blown up the television.
I know. I think you did nothing, Mondo.
He's like, yeah, just like that, yeah. And they do the stupid 90s hand sort of shake thing that... I was never cool back then. I'm not cool now. I don't care. And then Sean comes in, tells Jubilee her mum is calling her, and she says, can you tell her that I'm busy?
I'm busy, darling.
We cut to Skin sitting at security. There's a breach. And very quickly, everything goes to pot, and he starts screaming for help. Even though this is just a test, it's like his reactions are so ridiculous. Yeah. It's like your first day at school, you're just sitting at the security computers already, and they're testing you on security maintenance and management.
You failed security maintenance.
It's like, what sort of classes are they teaching at this place?
And how is he so good at hacking as well?
What? Yeah, that's never mentioned as well. It's implied that he's good at computers and hacking. Like, that's, obviously TV hacking, which comes up later. And then after that, they go to the library, or Skin goes to the library, find him looking for a book. And who happens to be there but Jubilee reading a book that he wants. And it's the book that Emma mentioned in her lesson earlier about the dream web and all these powers and whatnot. And you only fucking find out that Emma wrote the book herself. So she's actually just trying to sell them her book.
So you should read my book I wrote.
Not check all these other books from other academics. No, just read my book. This place is becoming more and more questionable. like it's almost cult-like,
I wrote that book.
The only information you're getting is from the people who are there, and they wrote all of the lessons.
It's my book. Read it now.
Jubilee calls the book mega weird, and she says the reason she's looking into it is because she wants to go into her parents' dreams.
Oh.
Apparently there's a dream web as well that comes up here.
Yeah, all mutants can access it as well.
All mutants, yeah. Oh, just I suppose that the internet was relatively youthful then as well, and the term the web, World Wide Web, was still kind of in use back then. So the idea of there being a sort of dream version of the internet is...
I guess that kind of makes sense, actually.
It's a very hackneyed sort of thing, but it's cheap. Just, This is a very cheap film. We're back with Russell. His partner is pushing for him to behave during a presentation to backers. Russell explains what he's up to and why he's doing this mutant thing, and he says it's doing it as revenge for what Emma Frost did to him at the beginning of the film, essentially. And the other guy's like, oh, you're doing this because of a girl?
No.
And then suddenly we cut to Emma Frost in bed reading a book, and then it cuts back to Russell, like for no reason.
I guess it's just to make sure he's talking about Frost being a woman that he wants.
We don't trust our viewers are going to understand who the hell he's talking about. Let's make sure you could have had a flashback to that first scene. No, it's her in bed reading a book calmly, and you're like, that's an interesting choice. And then it cuts back to him, and for no reason at all, he's putting on lipstick.
Because why not?
I mean, to each their own. Again, this isn't me judging anybody for wearing lipstick. But it's just you don't expect that to be the choice that both the actor and the writer and director have all made. Like, how about when we film you just start putting on some lipstick?
I
Sure.
just feel like this is one of the.
You mean I've got nothing against lipstick. Back with the school, the kids asked to head to town. Actually, it does make me question him putting on the lipstick, because maybe they're saying something about people who put on lipstick. Like, men who wear lipstick might be a bit odd and weird, like he is.
Maybe.
And that's questionable. Anyway.
It's the 90s, though, isn't it?
Yeah. It was a different time. Things are weird, and they're just associated AIDS and mutation.
Yeah. So, expect nothing.
Back with the kids at school, and they asked to head into town, and they convinced Sean to let them take his car, the people carrier, the wagon, into town to a cheap D-grade pop. We arrived they arrive in town listening to sort of D-level pop music, some sort of pop punk sort of band music. And the girls go shopping, because of course the girls go shopping. Arlie heads in to try something on, and we see for a split second as Jubilee walks in that
a bodybuilder's happened. A bodybuilder's appeared.
Somebody's bodybuilder's back is playing, and that's like one of the weirdest things. Is like, that's just a perfectly normal looking body to me. Like, they're toned, but just
that's what I was thinking. Because I was thinking maybe she's like scarred or something. Or is it like
it makes it sound like she's so densely muscular. Like, she's like, she took the jumper off, she'd fill out the jumper.
She's like someone who took steroids.
Like, not that she'd look like a woman's bodybuilder, but she'd look like Arnold Schwarzenegger under there, you know, or an extreme version of a bodybuilder, like further than anybody else. But no, just looks relatively normal, relatively toned body. I don't know. Her mutant power is being a normal girl, strong, normal girl. Jubilee walks in and then quickly apologises for walking in, and we head back outside. Outside, Mondo and Kurt share a fun story about Kurt feeling up Arlie while they were on top of Mondo. Yeah, I don't know if you caught that.
I think I was like because they were pointing to a bodybuilder magazine, weren't they, first? And he was like, "Oh, Harley's like that," and then he's like, "No, Mondo's like, yeah, whatever." Like, there's no way.
I got a feel while I was on top of her. I'm just like, what?
I think it's a thigh grab, isn't it? He said.
Yeah, well, I hope he meant the thigh. That's not as bad as whatever else he may have accidentally or deliberately possibly grabbed. But it's the fact they're going like, yeah, and they give each other sort of props for him touching her. It's like, yay, bonding over sexual assault. Amazing. Outside, Skin also is just creepily staring at a group of girls, and I'm like, they're looking at him like, what's this guy doing?
And he hears that as well. He's like, they call him, and he's still like, this. I'm like, what?
he's not just staring; he's staring with his mouth slightly hanging open, and he's like, just there, and it's an uncomfortably long period of time, and he just keeps doing it.
And he hears the guy call him a creep, and he's still.
And I'm like, this is entirely justified. They're entirely right to think he's a bit of a fucking weirdo. In a diner, Mondo and Kurt are having a food eating fight with some jocks.
The weirdest thing.
Yeah. God knows what the fuck that was. Skin walks in, and the girls come in just ahead of him. And they go to the jocks table, and they're like, "This guy's following us. He's creeping us out." Again, rightly so. So he sits at the sort of counter, and one of the jocks come over to him and invite him over, and he's confused and pleasant, so he shakes their hands. He's like, "Hello, my name's Angelo," and he walks over and sits down with them, and then they pick on him by pushing his face into a banana split. And the other kids from the school are like, can't get involved with beating up normies or something like that.
Yeah.
They say townies. Yeah,
townies.
And they head back to the school. Back in the school, Skin hacks into Cerebro security almost immediately.
Well, to me, it's like, is Cerebro that bad? Do you hack it like?
Oh, who knows? He's clearly a top grade A hacker. I think he just guesses a password in the end. I think he let's say hacks into the Cerebro, and he finds a closed off section of the school, which has Emma Frost's old dream diving machine, which is like a dentist chair with some bits attached to it.
And he prints out a key card off.
I love
a key card.
Yes, he prints out a key card to go and get into it. Back with Russell at the board meeting, he talks about or blabs on fucking forever, and while gurning, putting faces, and making weird noises about dream dimensions. He invades somebody else's dreams while in the board meeting and talks about how he's going to make them all fart and burp.
You see, this is the scene where I was like, this guy's stupid. So why would you invade someone's dreams in time to fart? Instead of giving the funding for the project, like it's just like
maybe he felt he was still trying to be legit at that point. I don't know.
I was like,
yeah, you just go in and tell them to give them all your money.
no.
But no, and it's because it's a TV show that's aimed at teenagers. They think it's funny to have farts and burps.
Maybe, yeah, I guess.
He could have done that and got the money. Though.
Yeah.
So he goes into their dreams and tells them that at 10 o'clock later on, while in the board meeting, they're going to pass wind. And they all pass wind, and a wonderful time was had by all. Back at the school, we see the kids doing some PE in the sort of, there's like a wall, rock climbing sort of face. And somebody's in a sort of gyroscopic thing, and God knows what they're trying to do in that. And for some reason, this school's PE lessons have death traps, which we'll get to. Skin turns up and tells Jubilee that he's found the dream machine and to meet her where it is later. And then Mondo takes a log to the face, which he survives. Like we're talking a big tree.
Is that
log? Yeah.
Like nothing happened. Is that
He survives because he grabs metal. Handhold and becomes as tough as metal. Although if he'd touched that handhold, it had been made of aluminium, it wouldn't quite have been as tough. So he's jumping to a conclusion that's the metal that's tougher than the tree is. Anyway, back at the board, we see that they all agree that Russell has gone too far. But wait, Swerve, it's Bob's dream. And Russell is here to trick Bob into jumping out of an apartment window. And I'd like to point out the shots on the outside of the apartment don't look like a very tall building, but when he's falling from below, it seems to go on forever. So God knows how tall that building was. But he'll kills Bob because he doesn't need him anymore. At least I assume he doesn't. Back at school, Jubilee is going on the dream web. But wait, Russell's there too, because he just made the guy jump out the window. What will happen?
I wonder. Dun, dun, dun.
Jubilee visits her dad, who's talking to his wife's picture. Yeah, I noticed. And his wife's picture is like talking back at him. Dreams. Crazy. And she forgives him for giving her up to the school. So they've closed that little loop of that story. That she's immediately forgiven them. Doesn't know why they've done it, but it's just like wanting to keep her safe, sort of thing. It's a dream. It doesn't really count as a proper conversation. But no, the worst thing has happened. Who would have seen it? Russell's here. He comes up to her and is a bit creepy, but he's deliberately creepy, not actual creepy like Skin.
That's his character. He's just being creepy.
Yeah, he's just being a bit weird and he's trying to scare her. And she wakes up, and it's good acting on her part, by the way. She's really that's really terrified sort of acting. She wakes up terrified and tries to beg Skin not to go in the machine next, but he ignores her completely and gets in anyway. Once again, Skin meets Russell and he overacts constantly and creeps the place up really weirdly too. He gets even more creepy. Not in a scary Freddy Krueger way, just creepy in general. And he sees Russell's looking in on the girl he was creeping on earlier, which is, we're going into the realms of really questionable moral actions here. I'm going to break this down for you. He's agreeing to help Russell by going to this complete stranger's dreams, this girl, and convincing her to like him. That's really, really bad.
What's the word for that called?
rape,
No, before that. What's
Oh,
it called?
the, coercion.
You know,
I just
where you manipulate someone to like.
that's coercion. I'd say,
Coercion.
yeah. But it's like he's made this with Mondo's Skin's blessing. Mondo's bad enough, but Skin's blessing. They've both made this girl like against her will. This is just
It's pretty much against it.
really. I needed a wash after that. Anyway, they in the middle of this conversation between Russell and Skin, suddenly the police turn up where Russell is and start taking him out of the machine he's attached to. And then you see him flying backwards, screaming, being pulled back to his body until Skin saves him. Open bracket, close bracket, saves. And traps him in the dream world. For some reason, you think.
How did Skin become used to these powers? It seems
Yeah,
like,
why is his power?
this seems like it's the first time he's ever used his power. Maybe because he's a dream. Maybe because he's in his
I don't know.
dream.
It's weird because the dream world is a real dimension.
Because before this, he's never showed that he can control his powers that well. Like
Maybe it's instinctive.
maybe, yeah.
And it doesn't seem to hurt him anymore.
That's
Every time he used it before, it hurt. It's weird. But he saves him by grabbing him using his stretchy arm and pulling him back to the dream ground. Therefore trapping him in the dream world at the same time. Yeah, how do his dream powers work in Dreamland? What do you think? I mean, we've talked about the moral questionability of one of our main heroes going in and tricking somebody else into liking them. What do you think of the rest of it so far?
yeah. I don't see the point of dream world, but
Yeah, what is the ultimate goal of this whole dream world thing? I understand him maybe using it financially
I guess
to convince other people to do things, but he doesn't need all this sort of shenanigans convincing people to do things to get what he wants.
Yeah.
He wants a mutant to test on them, but why is he convincing?
well, he wants the mutants to try and take their powers, isn't it?
Yes, but if you can convince people to do things, why don't you just go into Skin's dreams and implant a suggestion to come to where he is and just let him do it? I don't know. Yeah, how are you feeling about the film so far at this point?
I'm like, I want it to end. I feel like, I was like, come on.
It's a slow start, but then it kind of wraps up really quickly.
Yeah, I feel like the last 20 minutes is like they've crammed a lot of stuff in. Or like half an hour, I guess.
Not in a good way.
Not in a good way, no.
They're just knocking it out of the park. Like quickly.
Yeah.
We've got to finish up the story. So the next episode is cool. The next morning, anyway, Jubilee and Angelo are sitting on a wall and they're talking about what happened before, and she talks about shitting her pants, which was lovely.
She's like, it's horrible. Shut myself.
Kurt brings Harley a flower, but chickens out at first at giving it to her, pretending that he wants to know what the flower's sort of type is. And then eventually invites her to a town event and gives her the flower afterwards and wanders off. I'm not invested in this pair as a couple, but, you know, it's what we've got. You would have thought Skin and Jubilee, based on their interactions and how they're getting
That's
on,
what I thought it was going to
they're
happen.
going to be the couple, you know. But, yeah. And I'm happy they don't. It's perfectly fine for there to be one.
Well, let's face it, Skins is creep anyway. So.
Yeah, I was going to say. One, that's perfectly fine for a boy and a girl to be platonically friendly. And refreshing to see that happen in a piece of media, although them checking each other out at the beginning is a bit weird. And two, he's a fucking creep anyway, so she's better off without him. We head up to the hospital where Russell's being kept. He's in a sort of waking coma. He keeps blinking and nothing more, which is the most overacted. How is it he's managing to overact blinking? It's like his entire face is involved.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And the orderly seems to be implied he's being mistreating, but all he's doing is rubbing food on his face to try and get him to eat.
I was thinking it's already a bit stupid. Like, how could someone act like that, like, for 24 hours a day, like, keeping it act like...
He's like, stop playing around, eat your food. Fuck, you're a professional, aren't you? But everybody in this world is a dick. I don't want anybody to win. But then we cut to, hey, it's the fun fair. And the teens are hanging out. They've been allowed to go to the fun fair. Skin creepily stares at the girl from earlier again, like from the corner. He's just in the bushes, just staring at her, and then she notices, and then eventually drifts towards him because she's been hypnotized into liking him. She approaches and chats to him anyway for a while. They get on and they end up going off together. Kurt ends up in Sean's car, making moves on Arlie, and she asks him to take off his glasses. Quote.
Oh, yeah.
Which I had to double take on this one. I feel... Sorry. I feel like I'm kissing Quentin Tarantino.
That's okay. It looks like him. It does. It really does. A spitting image.
Yeah, I was just, what? I definitely had a double take on that one. Sure, Quentin Tarantino, sure. And then they really aggressively start kissing. Like they've only been hanging out for a little while. He's only taken them out on one date, but they're just all over each other in seconds. Kurt's powers kick in, finally, like fully, and he stops because it's implied he can see through her clothes. Or he's seeing something, and you're not sure if he's seen her clothes and seen her body and been confused or freaked out by her body structure or something else. And then they get out of the car. The buddy kid from earlier turns up and everyone gets into a fight with Mondo grabbing a stone so his face is hard as a stone, and that was alright. It's not quite Luke Cage, the guy breaking his arm when he punches him in the face, but he hurts his hand, and then eventually all the kids end up in prison. During this fun fair, Monet, who we barely see in this, she's walking around in an open jacket wearing just a bra.
And she's got loads of boys following her
around because she's like showing off her super strength. But I think they could have expanded on her character a lot more. But they mostly focus on the others. Like, Mondo doesn't get a lot of screen time. He doesn't have a lot of character development either. So, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that, but it makes you question a couple of things. But she's a more interesting character than many of the others are. Based on her attitude's completely different from all the others. Even if she's played a bit bitchy in the beginning, she's aloof with everybody, and showing it like the bit where she just smacks a hammer on the strength test and it hits the bell and she just passes the toy to the bodybuilder guy instead behind her. Like, here, have a present. So yes, we find them all in the prison, and they all go under assumed names with the police officer. And like Eddie, they're all called Eddie something. Eddie Van Halen and Eddie Venner. I can't remember the other two. But Emma turns up and she convinces the police officer that that's their actual names and lets them go. And she gets back to the school and starts chewing them out. And then Mondo stands up and takes credit for what's happened. He admits to it, so she expels him.
I think this is part of the understanding as well. I'm like, wait a minute, you're going to suspend these kids?
Well, let's get to it. She's expelled one of the 6 students they've got. And then they all start standing up. I'm Spartacus sort of moment. And then they all get expelled. She thinks that's an appropriate way to punish all of them because...
But is that kind of against her thing that they're going to go to music camp in the first place?
Yeah. So they're going to be taken away properly. They've all been expelled, even though they were abducted. And now she's got no students at her school of only 6 students. Rightly, Sean mentions this. You can't have a school without any students. And she starts talking about her backstory. And he mentions the loss of the Hellions. The Hellions, something we can actually research and talk about. The Hellions, in the comics, were a team of teenage mutants who were recruited by Emma Frost and trained educationally and in their use of their powers. At least version of Emma Frost actually taught them some other things aside from mutant powers. At the Massachusetts, or Massive Chewits Academy. So I think it's meant to be the same place, same building. The Hellions often clash with what were at the time the New Mutants. Now, for a point of reference, New Mutants changed their names eventually to become X-Force and X-Force is led by Cable, and Deadpool comes from X-Force, you know. And then there's later another version of X-Force, which is Deadpool, Wolverine, Psylocke, and a couple others, Mutant X or something. I can't remember the characters in it. Anyway, then they're all white, and it's the edgy sort of team. And even back in the post New Mutants, early 90s, late 90s, early noughties, X-Force, they were always the edgy ones. Rob Liefeld is responsible for Deadpool and a lot of New Mutants. And, you know, Rob Liefeld is also famous for being the world's worst comic book illustrator. We'll look up Rob Liefeld and Captain America, and you'll know what we're talking about. The Hellions often clashed with the New Mutants, though the relationship between the teams was often fairly cordial, and even flirtatious in some cases. For a time, the two teams even resided alongside each other. So it's more like two rival schools. There is a sort of not quite friendly, but not really.
They're not going to go kill each other.
No. A group of villains known as the Upstarts participated in a contest against each other to kill as many influential mutants as possible. The contest was secretly funded by the Hellfire Club's Black Queen, Selene, to test her fellow Inner Circle members. One of the upstarts, the insane time traveller Trevor Fitzroy, and his Sentinels, to attack and kill the Hellfire Club White King Donald Pierce and his Reavers. Trying to escape, Pierce had himself teleported by the mutant gateway to a party thrown by Emma Frost, and attacked the X-Men and his Hellions. Sorry. The ensuing battle, most of the Hellions were slaughtered, either by Fitzroy himself or his Sentinels. The massive turret's academy was abandoned until it was used to train Generation X. So, assuming the comic book universe's events are quasi-influential in the background of the TV show's events, this essentially happened to an extent to the Hellions, and hence why she's so, serious about the rules. That's what it's implying. Anyway.
Basically, it doesn't. Yeah, I can understand that now, but obviously you have to go into a lot of depth before.
Yeah, again, you assume if they'd got the show picked up, they would have talked about it. Later, Kurt approaches Arlie, and attempts to talk, but she walks off on him. Meanwhile, that night, Skin arrives at a girl's house and heads out on a night out. So he just turns up at this girl's house at a window and takes her out on a date. They dance in an atrium to music that possibly is diegetic, but I assumed it was just a soundtrack. So if you mute the soundtrack, he's just dancing with it's a weird lighting.
I was like, is this The Mask?
Yeah, it's really weird. His personality completely changes as well. And then they start kissing. And then you realise he's in a dream, and he's kissing her in her dream against her will again. You were saying. I mean,
Skin is just like a creep.
So yes, it's violative is all I can say. It's the only word I can think of. Later in his dreams, Russell invades his dream. So he gets out of the dream machine. So just to be clear, he gets out of the dream machine and then goes to bed himself, and then Russell invades his dream from the dream space. And he finds out that Emma Frost is at the school. So he convinces Angelo to go get his body back by threatening to
mindfuck his sister. I was like, what? I was like, what?
I use the term mind rape here.
Oh,
and not just his sister, his little sister.
Yeah, I feel like,
and he walks over, I think she was like 11, 12 years old at most. And I'm just like,
and he licks her face as well.
It's fucking weird. This is just, it's unbelievable. They thought this was going to be picked up for television. Again, there's only one word to describe the feeling after this, and that is yikes. Anyway, convinced by Russell and this breathtaking series of events that we've witnessed so far, Angelo breaks into the prison, hospital, principal. It's like a prison hospital. And attaches the headset to Russell's body. Russell wakes up and does the sort of Russell overacting thing, and chases an orderly pretending to be a zombie. He then abducts Angelo and ties him down in a random... I don't know where he is.
Secret lab.
It's like he's in some sort of power station.
It does.
For surgery. He's going to do what he was going to do into his brain. But he doesn't do it straight away for some reason. He goes to bed.
Like you would.
Ties him down, puts a ball cock in his mouth, ball gag, and then goes to bed. In his mind, Skin remembers what he was taught in his lesson and reaches out to Jubilee, and he appears as a Jedi ghost at the end of her bed. Yeah. After Jubilee tells the teachers they plan to head into the dream dimension. So the teachers tell the team after Jubilee gets them all together. I love Jubilee's little bed, sort of nightgown thing. Her sort of really fluffy looking, multicolored, soft looking.
She meant to be edgy and punky, right?
Yeah, it's like So all she needs is cocoa, and it'd be as charming as sight. Teachers tell the team the plans to go to the dream web. And Kurt quickly uses this as a chance to tell Harley the obvious thing we all figured out, that while she was upset earlier when she found out he could see through her clothes, that he'd accidentally seen through her clothes because his powers kicked in and only looked at her leg and didn't look any further because he stopped himself. We all figured that was what was going to have happened anyway. And his personality seems to have completely changed by this point, and he's not being all cool and whatever.
He's in love now.
Yeah. It's only been a few minutes, but he's in love. And he's developed a different personality completely, or maybe he's faking. Who knows? The team walks through the dream door, which Emma Frost can just make appear with her brain. It's implied that all mutants can do this, like you were saying earlier. All mutants can just make this door of light appear. And then the plan is to bring the entire building into the dream dimension. Anyway. The kids arrive as Russell is about to drill into Skin's head. And he stops within a split second of doing it and decides, for no reason,
he's going to give him a haircut. That
Skin should have a haircut. He doesn't like his hair, he should have a haircut. And then he gets a razor and asks him if he's been circumcised.
I was like, what? I know it's not the actor, it's just the writing. It's just...
Maybe that was an ad-lib, though. Who knows?
If it was ad-lib, the director would be like, what? No, we're not saying that, like... It's okay.
Anyway, suddenly Jubilee appears next to maybe the side of the bed, maybe it's hard to tell exactly where she's supposed to be. She just stares at him for a few moments as he sort of gestures and gurns and says about getting to her later. And then suddenly she uses finger guns to shoot some like fireworks at him, which knocks him back. And through a really sort of clunky scene, each of the kids get to show off their powers. Most of them are just strong, and he still has to somehow beat them up.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh my god, like you're embarrassing the team.
There's a reference to Nightmare on Elm Street because he gets thrown against the.
I did think that.
Big furnace, and it bursts open and flames fly out. Definitely a clear nod to Nightmare on Elm Street. And eventually, Banshee turns up and shouts him through a wall. Oh. Why he couldn't have done that from the start, I don't know.
And he gets all big somehow. And says, I've got powers all along.
I was getting to that. They were talking about maybe he's mutated naturally into a mutant somehow. Dream dimension is tied to that. And suddenly he's there, looking through the hole that he had been in, but he's really big, and he's got a tiny hand, because his hand kind of grabs the wall, and his face is the size of like King Kong's face. And then the camera kind of does a zoom trick, and he's just standing there normal sized again for no reason. He doesn't seem to have any powers. He's kind of there. He's just a guy still. He just can get big and then do nothing. Anyway, they end up outside because the door's open and they're all trying to get away. And Russell is confronting Emma Frost and talking about, it's just him versus her. And she says, I have to win because I can just take you with me. And he's talking about her noble sacrifice and all that. Two of us falling through the void forever, I think is something along the lines of what he says. But out of the blue, Skin just screams and grabs hold of him and wraps his arms around him over and over and over and over again, like a rubber band ball. And they fall into the void and everybody's heartbroken. And they all go to leave before suddenly, huzzah, Skin's arm stretches out of nowhere and grabs onto the edge of the wall. And he's pulled himself to safety. Hooray! Somehow this all makes sense. Anyway, he comes out of the nothing and the kids, they all escape. Later on, the kids are playing some sort of weird card game. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it's like, it looks like a version of Snap, but they're sort of bluffing each other and they've got weird images and just random things, and there's a big X on the back of the cards. So it's like, I have no idea what this game is.
An X-Men game.
If anybody can tell me what this card game is supposed to be, please let me know, because it doesn't make any sense at all. But in the middle of this game, the doors in the hallway open up and the light shines behind Arlie, who's made to look angelic almost. She steps out,
Miss Marvel appears.
Confident and proud of her body, wearing the new uniform, no longer in baggy clothes, looking like an average teenage girl.
That's what exactly I was like, wait a minute, you've been all this time, you've been worrying about how she looks different, muscular.
She's got no muscular definition on her body at all. They could have padded out the suit to make it look like she had muscles underneath, but okay, fair enough. I mean, I'm not trying to body shame, I'm just saying they've implied this thing, they should...
And they even show the thing, that's the point, though.
Yeah.
They show it in the like...
Anyway, and everybody stares at her. She walks forward, and out of nowhere, like a music video, Emma Frost and Banshee step to the side, and they go, "Kids, what do you think of your new uniforms?" And then a big X flashes on her belt buckle, and we cut from there. And what could have been the credits, but we cut to one final scene, and we end on Russell's body, back somehow in the hospital. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but wasn't he physically drawn into the dream world and then dropped into the void?
Yeah.
Him, his body, and his mind. Not separate from his mind. All of him was. In which case, how did his body get back? And yet his mind's still there. What's going on? Anyway, we see that he's in a waking coma and he's doing that overacting blink thing. And then credits.
It's in his eye, you see the dream web.
He is the dream web now.
He's the web.
But he could come back.
I guess that's implied that he's going to come back, because why would you show that at the end?
Yeah. So a quick note. After looking at some of the classic comics, the uniform that Arlie's wearing is actually one of the uniform variants they use in the comics, and it looks relatively good in comics, and it's not too unfaithful.
No, it doesn't look that bad. I didn't think it looked
a bit cheap.
It looks a bit cheap, but it didn't look horrible. Like
the shoulder pads could go, I'd say.
It's not the worst superhero I've seen.
I can't find an image of it here to show you. I would use it as one of the images. I'm going to use this as the official image, I think. But sadly, it's not there to show you. But it's pretty accurate. It looks ridiculous at first, but it's not as ridiculous as it could have been for the budget. So that is Generation X. What do you think of the overall experience? Any lingering questions? Anything you want to talk about? Now you've had a chance for us to go through the whole thing.
It's kind of a hot mess, isn't it, in a way? I can see why it didn't get picked up, though.
It is a show of its time.
Especially with it to, maybe, I guess, all the white men in it, in it, know about, what's this, And it does make a lot of, sexual innuendos in it. They're quite young, aren't they, as well? So like,
Yeah.
it's just a weird it's a weird thing for teenagers. Like,
Yeah, it's like you see her, like I say, them stripping her nude, and like them talking about all the stuff they talk about her body and the rape stuff, the mind raping stuff, and the creepy behaviour towards other people. It's like
there's a lot of stuff in it. It's just like, what? Like,
yeah, like it's worse than I remembered it being. But it's not as bad as I remembered it being as well. It's weird. And I like I say, there are moments where I appreciate there's a range of powers and they show them in a different way than they would have in the films. So I understand to an extent why Professor X and Jean Grey have not been really obviously expressed their power sets. But you could have done something with them. Yeah. You've got plenty of budget. You can come up with something. But they don't really do anything in the films until Jean Grey becomes something else, which we won't officially talk about yet. And then she's not really doing psychic powers. She's got new powers. So it was nice to see that explored. It was interesting seeing the other characters removed and replaced with these new characters, and a lot of the teenagers aren't very filled out. It's questionable that they're not using the minority characters aside from Skin really as much as they could have. They focus more on these, like they've literally whitewashed one character who should be Chinese.
But I guess that's not a product of his time though.
To an extent, but we have to.
It would have been interesting to see where it did go though. If they did continue or to see the script where they're planning on going with that. Like
some of the characters, there's potential. Mondo didn't show a lot of potential as a character, but I could see some in the others who weren't used as much. And the two newer characters, they were kind of throwaway, but at the same time, you could still do something with them. I suppose because they're original characters, that's why they were given more story, because there's investment in their backstory, because everything's brand new. You are the entire backstory. But yes, as a sort of weird, this happened before X-Men happened, and around the same time as the cartoon was getting popular and X-Men licenses were becoming interested in. It's an interesting sort of, relic of what had happened. And, I appreciated it back then more than I do now, because I was, let's say, a fan of Jubilee and I'd read it, Generation X, and so I appreciate some of the characters. But let's move on to the post-release stuff. There's not a lot to talk about, but we should talk about, the movie was originally developed as a plot ahead of a possible TV series and was obviously not picked up, but did end up being sold on VHS in the UK, because obviously it wasn't screened in the UK, I don't think. It may have been screened on Sky, possibly, but I didn't see it happen. I don't think it was confirmed. It's one of a couple of possibly X-Men adjacent pilots that ended up on Sky.
I don't know. I wonder if he's made his money back.
Maybe from the VHS sales.
I'm going to guess, yeah.
I don't think it's likely that it made a lot.
No.
But you never know. It was probably one of those did well in rental stores sort of things. It's certainly where I saw it the first time. It currently has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 24% from a user review bed of 341 users.
I mean, I guess that's... Yeah, but it's not the worst. I think it's pretty worse. Like, you probably find worse superhero movies in it.
Yes, but I mean, for what it was, it was a reasonable score.
Yeah,
it's interesting that some people think enough of it for it to be 24%. As of the cast, the ones that have done things of note since, Agustin Rodriguez, who's Skin, in 2011, he directed a short based on Metal Gear.
Eh?
I like how you say "did he" as if he was like surprised. You've never heard of this guy before. He didn't tell me. What?
But is that all he's done though? Really? Sure.
He's probably done some other bits and bobs of acting, but this is something that was notable. Noticeable, and interesting. It's like, what? Oh. That guy did that. He's probably had bit parts of things. Jeremy Ratchford, who played Ives guy here. I've already forgotten his name. Kurt. That's it. He played a sexual predator on an episode of NYPD Blue, and it was on 2 episodes of The Practice. As well. No, actually, I'm thinking of this. Sorry, this is Banshee. We're talking about the non-Irish Irish guy. There we go. I'm confusing people now. If he hears this, he's gonna be so embarrassed. Played a sexual predator on an episode of NYPD Blue, 2 episodes of Practice. He was also a vampire, Lyle Gorch, in Buffy the Vampire Slayer episodes Bad Eggs and Homecoming.
Never seen Buffy.
Oh no, don't. We've got a timeline enough as it is. I've seen some of Buffy. And he starred as Nick Vera on the TV series Cold Case.
Ain't seen that either.
Still relatively successful series. Heather McComb. In 1997, McComb starred in the television series Profiler as Frances Malone. And next year, she joined the cast of Party of 5 as in the part of Maggie. And on July 5th, 2003, this is just of note, it's not like a career thing, she married actor James Van Der Beek. They separated in 2009. Of Dawson's Creek fame, if we don't remember who that is. Obviously, she's famous for being her. We're not going to say she's James Van Der Beek's ex. Obviously, she's done this, which is more than I've ever done. And she's probably one of the better actors in the show. Bumper Robinson is since known for his roles as Bumblebee and Blitzkrieg in Transformers Animated, Falcon in Avengers Assemble, and Cyborg in Justice League Doom. So he's one of the second Cyborg actors we've seen on this series, on the show so far. Matt Frewer, as obviously the biggest name here, has gone on to play Dr. Leek in Canadian science fiction drama Orphan Black. He included in a role in Steven Spielberg picture The BFG. He's the character Carnage in the Netflix series Altered Carbon in 2018. Logan in Fear the Walking Dead.
I've seen Altered Carbon.
Fiona Hughes, she's also known for a portrayal of Anne Devaine's identical twin, Dr. Alexandria Devane Merrick on All My Children, and Patty Halliwell on the Supernatural series. So she's in Supernatural. Oh no, not Supernatural. Sorry, in the Supernatural series, Charmed. But she's in Charmed, so that's relatively well known as well. I think old Charmed, not modern Charmed. There's another Charmed now. They rebooted that a few years back.
That's what I heard.
She also portrayed Carol in the final seasons of NBC sitcom Blossom. So film Aspen Extreme, Above Suspicion, and Like Crazy, which aren't big films. Now we get to the guy who's got the seeing through things eyes. Kurt. Randall Slavin was in Zoolander as JFK assassin. He was in had some spots in CSI Crime Scene Investigation, and in 1999 and 2000 in Angel he had a recurring spot as a male Oracle.
Never seen it either.
No, oh god, Buffy and Angel now. Well, we're not going to touch Buffy and Angel for a while.
Ever.
I don't think, if ever. Hey, don't tempt fate. It could be. I might draw a hat and just pick the next series randomly, and you could be eating your words, couldn't you? Anyway, that's the entirety of that series. That film. We've done 2. As I mentioned earlier, the mansion will be popping back up again.
The famous X-Mansion.
X2. So this is officially the X-Men mansion they were in. So it's the same universe in Irons.
Might have to go and visit it sometime.
Yes, I'm sure they'll let you. So, next episode, we will be going back to the mainline Fox X-Men movie franchise with X2, X-Men 2, X-Men United.
X-Men 2. I like X-Men 2. Well, what member of it?
Well, we'll talk about whether or not you like it when we get there.
From now, though, with my memory, I like it.
Yeah, you've got a feeling you do. So, are you excited about that?
I'm excited
That
about
you
it
say,
too.
yeah. back into proper big screen television stuff, film stuff.
Back into proper quality.
I
as in
I
like
don't know. There are some things.
as in screen quality, as in like the pixels and all
You
that.
can actually see what's going on. Yeah. I wanted to get it on Blu-ray. Maybe I can get it on Blu-ray before. I'm thinking maybe I'll just watch it this weekend and start work on researching it in advance because it's probably going to be a lot. So we're excited about that. Feel free to join and watch along with us. We'll be watching at least the PAL UK sort of Region 2 version of X-Men 2.
I believe it's extended version, wasn't it?
I might try and watch it on Blu-ray. We'll watch the basic cinematic version. Like it'd be nice to get the 2.5 version, but I can't even get the Blu-ray version right now, so we'll see. We also want to quickly shout out my patron on Patreon. Mike Wong, thank you for your continued support. If you want to support the show or anything I do, feel free to find the Patreon link in the description. And thank you for joining us for the Timeline, episode 2.
Thank you, and arrivederci.
Yes, don't watch this show.
Well, actually, do watch it then.
Yeah, maybe if you want. If you want to, I mean, it's only an hour and 20-something minutes, but don't.
It's a long hour, 20.
Yeah, it's a long hour. But yes, if you want to look back at a worse time in human history, feel free to watch the show. Oh God, give it a miss if you have to. Yeah.
Make your eyes bleed.
Yeah, take off your sunglasses and watch your eyes bleed.